Hello and welcome to this edition of Access Asia. Coming up, Myanmar's military staged a coup. Politicians detained and generals declared a state of emergency, ending the Southeast Asian nation's slow and uneven march towards democratic rule. India's government reaps what it sows, while protests by farmers over market-friendly laws show no end in sight. We'll find out if there's any chance at compromise. And as animal-to-human illnesses become increasingly common, we follow a team of virus hunters in Thailand. Their mission to find the next deadly disease before outbreak occurs. Well, Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi was detained in Myanmar as the country's military staged a coup. Other senior democratically elected politicians were also taken into custody. For weeks, tensions have been rising. After losing parliamentary elections in November, the army-backed opposition claimed the poll was rigged. The coup marks a sharp reversal of democratic progress the nation has made following 5 decades of military rule. Solange Moujon and Peter O'Brien have more.
It's called the Tatmadaw. That's the official name in Myanmar for the military. After seizing power in 1962, not long after Burmese independence from Britain, it ruled the country with an iron fist, notably cracking down on a huge uprising in 1988, killing hundreds if not thousands of protesters. After 49 years of reign, a page was turned in 2011 and the army began a political transition to what it called a disciplined flourishing democracy. Figures like the Nobel Peace Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi and other persecuted pro-democracy politicians were released. Peace talks between them, ethnic leaders and the military were held. And Suu Kyi's party, the National League for Democracy, secured a landslide in 2015. The military honoured the results. Across the globe, world leaders hailed the transition as a beacon of hope. But the Tatmadaw was always there, wielding significant power. The military-sanctioned constitution stipulated they hold onto a quarter of parliament. And the military, through corporations, would control vast parts of the economy, which, under the guise of a blooming democracy, was no longer subject to severe sanctions.
People of Burma are long used to military rule. Even when the generals somewhat stood back from power, they set up under their own constitution this rather awkward power-sharing arrangement as far as the civilian parties are concerned.
But it's perhaps human rights abuses that illustrate best the continued power of the army. In 2017, it stepped up a brutal campaign against the Rohingya Muslim minority. Civilian leader Suu Kyi, as state council, did not come out against it, drawing global condemnation. At home, the tenuous power-sharing position did not squash Suu Kyi's popularity. Her party would go on to win an even greater landslide in November. This pushed the civilian government's growing tensions with the military to breaking point. The Tatmadaw was no longer as reliant on investment from different countries thanks to a rapprochement with China. And they already had no choice but to weather a dip in tourism due to the coronavirus. So the military decided it was time to take back control.
Well, for weeks, farmers in India have rocked the country with their massive protests, angry over 3 new laws that they say would leave them vulnerable to exploitation by private companies. The laws, which are aimed at modernizing the economy, loosen rules around the sale, pricing, and storage of produce, which have protected farmers from the free market for 5 decades. Talks between unions and the government have failed to break the deadlock. And for more, we can speak to France 24's own Delano D'Souza. Hello, Delano.
Hi.
Tell us, first of all, more about the farmers and how they're perceived in the country.
Well, 60% of India's workforce is engaged in some form of agriculture. So farmers themselves are an incredibly important voting bloc. Farmers, if you will, lie in the center of India's cultural and national imagination. We've had movies in the past dating back to the 1950s on the Indian farmer and the struggles they face, whether it was Mother India in 1957 or more recently in 2001, this movie called Lagan, which went all the way to the Oscars, about a group of farmers in British India who beat the British at a game of cricket and effectively cancel 3 years of their land tax. it's very hard for farmers in India, like it is in here in France or even in the United States, to be portrayed in a negative light. Like soldiers, farmers are a segment of the population that are deeply respected, and political parties, wherever you are very careful with how they handle them.
Now, January 26 was Republic Day in the country, and things turned violent. One protester died, 300 police officers were killed. How did that change the public's opinion?
Well, after the chaos on the 26th of January, we did see an attempt by the mainstream media in India to try and portray the protests in a negative light. There you can see we have a Sikh flag under the Indian flag of a Sikh separatist movement, because a majority of the farmers protesting are from two states, Punjab and Haryana. And so there was an attempt to try and say, look, we try and deface the Indian flag, when clearly there wasn't an attempt to do that. So the farmers have been saying, in the aftermath of that chaos on the 26th of January, that outside elements stoked the violence. But has support for the protest waned in the aftermath of that 26th of January? Not at all.
All right, Delano, we're 2 months on. Any idea what will happen next, and if there's any chance of finding compromise?
Well, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is not a man known to compromise, because during the election, after the last general election in 2019, he came out with a stronger mandate than he had in 2014. So there is a feeling in New Delhi that you can push through reforms with very little or no room for debate. We saw that happen with the Citizenship Amendment Act at the end of 2019, when you had a lot of people out on the streets protesting a law that was found to be discriminatory to Muslims. The government and the Prime Minister dubbed those people who were protesting anti-national. You cannot do the same thing about farmers. You cannot call farmers anti-national when they are the ones who make up a bulk of the Indian population, and they are the ones who are putting the food on your plate at night. So it's a catch-22 for the government. The farmers are out on the streets, on the outskirts of Delhi, continuing on with their strike. The government says it wants to defuse the situation. Modi says he's willing to stall the farm laws for 18 months, but the farmers themselves say they want those laws done away with. They want them repealed totally. So it's unclear what's going to happen. We'll just have to wait and watch.
All right, thank you very much, Delano. Delano D'Souza reporting on those farmer protests in India. Now, while much of the world's attention is on the COVID-19 pandemic, a small group of scientists are busily searching for the next deadly outbreak. They're called virus hunters. Their mission is to categorize novel pathogenic bacteria and viruses found in the wild that could potentially make the leap to humans. We follow a French scientist on his quest deep in Thailand.
In the north of Thailand, near the border with Laos, weaving through the countryside, French scientist Serge Morand and his Thai colleague are on a mission to track potential new viruses. It's rural areas like these that could hold the answers to how viral diseases evolve in animals before they reach humans.
Sawadee-krap. How are you?
In this village, Serge Morand and his team test the local canines. Half domestic, half feral, these dogs spend their days roaming through nearby forests and rice fields. Blood samples are taken from each, as well as fleas, parasites and other organisms present in their skin, like this tick, which may have already fed on wild animals like boars or rats.
It's especially interesting to understand what kind of virus this tick could have picked up in the wild and transmitted to this dog, which could then pass it on to humans.
It's exactly what happened to this man. After examining the ticks found in the area, Serge Morand's team found they contained a huge range of viruses.
There's been a bit of human exposure to the virus, but it's not really clear yet.
Potentially dangerous viruses?
Potentially, yes.
From village to village, the professor and his team inspect some 20 dogs. His work is financed by both the French and Thai governments. If a new disease is found, Morand must contact the national health authorities immediately before they can be transmitted to human beings. Over the past 20 years, animal-to-human or zoonotic epidemics have multiplied. Many scientists blame human activity. In this national park, a plantation of rubber trees have been grown to meet increasing demand from China, and it's taken a heavy toll on the surrounding ecosystem.
Nous n'avons plus de prédateurs.
We don't have any more predators here to kill the rats. We don't have any more predators here to kill the mosquitoes. So in the end, these rats and mosquitoes grow in number and the viruses are very happy. They can spread quickly among the population and the humans who work on this plantation, they get infected.
Travailler sur ces plantations se font infecter.
The same phenomenon is occurring around dams constructed across Asia. These immense man-made reservoirs of water are full all year round, perfect for mosquitoes and birds, and potential new diseases.
We've already seen viruses emerge which only used to be present in birds, but there are cases now in Thailand of humans infected with these viruses.
The overwhelming majority of these viral diseases pose little danger to humans. But COVID-19 has proven that it only takes one to bring the world to its knees.
And finally, an uplifting story that has emerged from the pandemic. A street vendor has become known as the Pakistani Charlie Chaplin. Usman Khan watched the silent films of the British comic while recovering from being ill. He then copied every detail: the cane, the floppy shoes on the wrong feet, and of course, the trademark mustache. Now, Usman already has more than 800,000 followers on social media, and people from around the world watch him reenacting some of the best-known Chaplin scenes. Usman calls his act a sort of charity, no cost, and for the benefit of others. Well, we'll leave you with these images. That's it for this edition. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned to France 24.